There are around 4 to 5 million migrant workers in Malaysia, with only 1.8 million of them being documented. The unwillingness of Malaysians to perform labor-intensive jobs has created an enormous demand for migrant workers, as they tend to be less picky with jobs and salaries. They are everywhere in our everyday lives, performing jobs ranging from a security guard in a condominium, to a construction worker at a construction site, and to a waiter in a restaurant. Despite their major economic contributions to our country, Malaysians tend to treat them as unwelcome visitors. Hence, they become the subject of racism, prejudice, and discrimination from Malaysians.
The undocumented workers arrive with the help of certain so-called agents without any papers. These migrants reach Malaysian shores with money borrowed from loan sharks in their respective countries. Thus, they cannot return empty-handed. Come what may, they have no choice but to accept any employment. They live in perpetual fear, at times denied their wages for months.
Almost all the legally recruited workers were recruited by agents. Usually, these workers are transported in groups. The agent in Malaysia would receive them and then hand them over to the employers concerned. Many of them never get the jobs they are recruited for or receive the exact salaries as specified in their passport, but the workers have no choice but to agree to the conditions they are subjected to.
Advocates for the rights of migrant workers have reported that it is common practice for employers to seize migrant workers' passport upon arrival in Malaysia. When employers hold migrant workers' passports, they hold control over them. They restrict their ability to move and essentially trap them in Malaysia, where they can continue to be exploited.
Migrant domestic workers, the people you call maids or kakaks, are especially subject to violence and abuse by their employers. Many domestic workers fall victim to slapping, beating, and other acts of violence by their employers. They are often overworked, rising at 5 a.m. and working into the night. Migrant domestic workers can be malnourished and given poor quality food in small quantities. They go through mental torture when they are denied contact with their family and friends. Their salaries are withheld. The average domestic worker's experience is to spend 2 years living in a small room at the back of a house, let out only to work.
Theoretically, migrant workers have the right to file complaints to the authorities in the occasion that they find their working privileges robbed from them. However, any sort of complaint from the workers themselves might upset their employers or agents, who have the power to get them arrested and deported under some trumped-up charge. So, they stay silent. They have no way of voicing their concerns, not just about their living conditions, but about the terms of their employment, their salary, and other abuses. This issue occurs much more commonly among unskilled or undocumented laborers, essentially making them slaves to their employers.
Migrant workers in Malaysia often live in slums or rumah kongsi, where living conditions are unsanitary and cramped. As a result, even moments of rest and sleep are miserable, and diseases such as tuberculosis, pneumonia, and dengue fever are widespread among migrant workers. Recall how migrant workers often have their passports confiscated by their employers. This lack of a passport and other documentations effectively obstruct them from legally seeking healthcare at local clinics, leading them to resort to alternative cures for their illnesses. 10 cans of energy drinks to treat dengue fever, for example.
Migrants, especially those who are undocumented, are also afraid of the police, whom one worker described as robbers in a uniform. There have been cases of migrants being picked up by the police and being forced to pay them off with fines, which are so hefty that they can cover up to a mouth worth of the migrants. Some migrants workers say that they never go out alone or in small groups for fear of being assaulted or robbed, mostly by the Malaysia gangsters.
Migrant workers are humans too, just like us. They come here to work, and they work just as hard, if not harder, to earn a living in order to feed themselves and their families. So why do we marginalize them? Why do we associate them with the wrongdoings of our country, especially crime, even though the police clearly say that they are only responsible for a small number of them?
There is very little social and political will to deal with these problems. As long as someone is making money out of migrants, the exploitation will not stop. However, as long as we as society recognize the severity of this situation, then there is still hope. So let us stop harboring prejudice against these people we see every day and everywhere. Let us abstain from viewing their presence as a threat to our nation. There is more to the issue than what the media, your parents, and even us say. Change is possible, and it starts from you.